Hi, this is Roger and thanks for joining me on my channel. This set of short video clips will show all of my orchids as the growing season gets underway. And then at the end of the season I'll film them all again and do a direct comparison so you can see how they've progressed. These are the befores of the before and after idea. Hope you enjoy them. Okay, these are my relatively newly acquired, in virtually all cases, Latoria type dendrobiums. There's one sneaking in there, otherwise it will be a little set of one, which is my antelope type, and they do have similarities, including where they come from and all that sort of stuff. So we'll do this as a little group. Now this little dendrobium that's very sorry for itself is, I've forgotten, Delacurii. It went downhill fast after getting it. Very poor root system. I wasn't very pleased with this plant when it arrived, I must admit. And then it pushed up that one weak new growth, which is still retaining the two leaves that it's got. And quite honestly, that is its only hope, is for that to keep the plant alive long enough to at least push another new growth out. But whether that one's going to be there at the end of the season is doubtful. It just is not moving. It's sulking, it's doing nothing. This little tiny one here is Rhodostictum. It has one lovely new growth pushing up now that's at least going to be as tall as the one that's got the bud on it. And I would say it's a very young plant, which I wasn't expecting to get a bloom on, I must admit, but I'll take it. I'll take it while it's there. So what we have there is something that really needs repotting because I don't know what it's in. So it's on the list. It does have a few new roots pushing out from the base of that new growth, so it would be a good time to do it. I'll wait till the flower finishes, unless the flower seems to be hanging on for ages and ages and I get too far into the season and the roots start getting too big. Otherwise I'll just take the risk. But it's on the repot list as soon as it's convenient. Alright, this next one is Roy Tokonara, and it's a named variety White Knight. I presume that gives us a clue what the blooms are going to look like. This was an Ecuagenera plant, recent acquisition. Nice plant, and got a lovely strong new growth coming up at the base, just here. And the other new growth that it had down here when I got it has pushed on nicely and is opening a nice new set of leaves. What have we got? I mean, there is potential for any of these larger canes to push that centre and actually produce a spike. Whether it will or not, I don't know, but there's certainly no reason why it shouldn't bloom on this one when it matures properly. Yeah, so I'm pleased with the plant, and the fact that it's now pushing up a second new growth. It's been repotted, so yeah, that should pick up and push on nicely this season. This next one is a cross. I think it's actually a primary cross. It's also got dead leaf. We'll have that off. I don't think that leaf's off this plant actually. But yeah, it's Polysema crossed with Aberrans. Whether both of those are species or not, I'm not sure. The fact that they're in lower case, probably. Hasn't been repotted yet. It's got some sponge in the pot. It's on the repotting list. It does have nice new growth pushing out there. I will get this one repotted quite soon. No need for an emergency repot or anything like that. I mean, that's a relatively new cane there. So is this tall one. You can tell because on these types, well, so far in my experience, the new growths have got pink tinges to the sheaths. And then as they get older, either the sheaths are pulled off or come off. But you see what I mean? There's a pink tinge, and it makes the plant quite attractive. And that's a nice plant. I'm pleased with that. Again, I mean, there's signs of that centre bud in between those leaves moving, and possibly there, and possibly there. But no guarantees. I say, these are all new plants to me. I don't know how they work, you know, how they produce their spikes, at what point, you know, and everything like that. But maybe that one will bloom. We shall see. But it's on the repot list at the moment. And this last Latoria type, again, new acquisition. This is Alexandre. This is its latest growth, larger than all the others, but again, not knowing what size this plant is supposed to be, I don't know whether that's still an immature growth or whether that's actually the size that the canes get, in which case there's no reason why it shouldn't bloom. I mean, there is signs of something in the centre there. Maybe that'll turn into a spike, we shall see. But at the moment on the repot list, again, relatively new acquisition. But when I water it, there's no whiffiness to it, so media's not breaking down or anything, despite having some old moss on the top. So I'll get it repotted as and when. I'm not in any hurry. I would like to do it when I see some actual new growths coming from the base, because although this is a new growth, it's not mine. It just completed, you know, its maturing phase during my ownership. But there's no actual new, brand new growths coming from the base as yet. But we'll see how we go. Now, although I don't know the potential size of quite a few of the new Latorias I've got, I do know this one's a young plant. This is Nora Tokunaga, one of those two, and that's its first new growth for me, pushing on nicely. Got green root tips in places, down in the pot and in other places, but I believe this has been grown from a seedling on the grounds. It's got those tiny little pseudobulbs at the back, so it's less likely to be a division if you see something like that. If you get a plant where all the pseudobulbs are roughly the same size, it's not a seedling. Simple as that. It's a division. But that one may have been a seedling, and it's got one new growth at the moment. All the bulbs except those tiny little things at the back have got leaves on, and I'd like to see some good progression on that this year. Blooms are nice. And the last one in this section is an antelope type, which isn't strictly a Latoria, but they are sort of related, if only from where they come from. Good plant, this one. The two latest growths are nice and strong. I think this one has reached maturity now. I don't think there are any more leaves to come, but that doesn't stop it growing in size, in length, if you know what I mean. And this one's just opening probably its last leaf, so similar again. You know, it will grow a little bit taller, not a lot. The good thing with this one is it's got a very good root system, and it also has two additional new growths just starting. That's on the repot list to be done quite soon, to take advantage of the stage that those roots are at now would be good. So that's up near the top of the repotting list. It will be done soon. And I am really looking forward to the blooms on that. With a name like Dendrobium black antelope, you can get a clue as to what the blooms are like. I'm really looking forward to seeing them, because so far it's only been pictures. But yeah, it's a nice plant. This is a little mini Phalaenopsis. It would have probably been in bloom when I got it, or I wouldn't have got it. It hasn't got a very good root system. It's not a vigorous plant. I mean, I water it, and at the moment it's got a tiny little new leaf coming. Currently it has 5 leaves. No idea what the blooms look like because it never got a label. Another not very vigorous mini Phalaenopsis, although this one looks like it's going to pull on a lot better this year. It has got some good roots coming out. Yeah, several new roots here. We've got active root growth in the pot, although not a huge amount, but then it's only a tiny plant. Currently, what have we got? 2, 4 leaves and a new leaf just starting that hopefully will grow to full size. Now that it's got some roots to support it. Another one of my mini Phalaenopsis. This one's not quite as lacking vigour as some of the others that I've got. I mean, we've got good active root growth, relatively new, but there's 2 nice new roots coming out the back there. It's got its long dangly aerial root, which I must keep tucked in the tray or it'll get knocked. And another new root there, and this one actually has a spike just starting, so once that gets going we'll be able to see the blooms. I can then get a label in there with a description of the bloom so I can differentiate it between other plants. But yeah, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4 older leaves and a new one setting off into the new world. Last year I found a place up near where my daughter lives, large garden centre that did orchids and quite a variety at times, but basically for a splash of colour I bought a few of the larger no ID Phalaenopsis, knowing that if they still had unopened buds I was going to get some colour for quite a long period of time later in the year when there's not too much else going on. So that's why it was got. And I was just going to dump them, but I've decided to keep them. I can accommodate them, I've got room for them, so I'm just going to keep them. So this is, until they bloom again, I can't say which one's which. I know there was a white one, there was a couple of deep purple ones, but until they bloom again, they're just a no ID. But just to sort of benchmark this one, that's its oldest leaf, which is split. I didn't do that. That's its old bloom spike. Two reasonable leaves here. That one failed and I cut it off with a bit of cinnamon, and then a top leaf, another large top leaf with a slug hole in it, and a nice new leaf just coming, and some new roots pushing out from the main stem, and down in the pot it's got some reasonable roots. So, you know, as a Phalaenopsis goes, I'll keep it, see if I can get it to bloom again. Another one of the large strappy no ID Phalaenopsis, bought for a splash of colour last year, but don't know what the colour is till it does it again. But at least this one is going to do it again. Nice spike coming up there, so we'll see what that looks like. That leaf is going to go in the very near future. It's yellowing already and desiccated. It's its oldest leaf, so no worries there. And then we've got a 2, 4, 5 and a new leaf on that one, and a spike and some new root growth. Don't think it's got an extensive root system in the pot. What the roots were starting to go on that one when I repotted it, but it's got good new roots pushing out now, and this is its growing season, so hopefully those roots will kick off. And the ones that I left on didn't have growing tips, they got trimmed. Some of the ends were rotten, and hopefully some of those will branch, so we'll see how we get on. Another no ID Phalaenopsis, currently in bloom. It's got 2 blooms on it, although these are getting on a bit now, so they probably won't last too much longer. And I'm not sure that extension on that spike is going to make it, but it may do. But it does have another spike. Okay, so it's got a secondary spike coming now. These lower 2 leaves are probably going to fail in the not too distant future. The one at the very bottom that I can't get at is tiny, so that doesn't really matter. And then that one, another older, smaller leaf. So coming back from there, we've got 2, 4, 5 and a new leaf pushing on. Very, very good root system on this one. Dry as a bone at the moment, just about to get drowned. My Sedera japonica, which is now Phalaenopsis japonica I believe, is about to shed its lowest old leaf. That's a tiny leaf anyway, not particularly fussed about that. So currently the state of the plant is we've got 2, 4, 6, 7 leaves, the top one being relatively new. There's signs of active root growth, there's some new roots coming out of the stem, and at the moment, again that's a root. At the moment there's no sign of any spike on that, but I do have some active roots and some new ones coming, so we'll see how that one gets on. This is Phalaenopsis Sweet Memory. Yes, just checking, it's been a long day. Yeah, this is the oldest leaf. This will probably drop in the not too distant future. Then we've got 2 down that side. Got 2 down this side, and the large strappy one that decided to go out sideways, probably heading for the light. It's got a nice spike coming on at the moment, old spike dying back there. No sign of a new leaf yet, but that should happen either, well, it should happen sometime during this growing season. It should push out another leaf. It's a nice strong plant, very, very wide leaves on this particular variety, really wide. And in this case really long as well. It now takes up that amount of space on a shelf. You'd better bloom well. These are my mounted Phalaenopsis, which quite honestly was done as a bit of fun. and also to get them out of the flipping way. I can accommodate mounts an awful lot easier than pots with big strappy leaves, but I want to get this one out of the way because this may not be long for this world. This has been sitting there doing next to nothing. If you look at one of the original leaves that is starting to get desiccated, its subsequent leaves are tiny and thin. It has no vigour. It has roots that hydrate and not one single sign of a root tip anywhere at all. What I think I'm going to do is, it's going to get a spray for a start, because that is a distinct possibility. Lack of vigour, lack of growth, no new growing roots. You know, it's got all the signs, isn't it? But what I think I'll do is, as there are no growing root tips anywhere, the only roots it's going to get are either new ones or branches off of these. So that long one out to the left I can cut, and if I cut it I can get it in a pot. While I'm at it, I can take those remains of the old leaves off and expose the rhizome at the base, which is where the new roots are going to come from, if it can grow any. But that one is a bit of a suspect plant. May not be long for this world. They're not my favourites at the best of times. This one is a mini phal, so it's not going to, you know, the leaves are the right size. It is currently just pushing out a new leaf. It has pushed out a couple of brand new roots recently, which are getting down, well, that one's getting down onto the mount, and the others that are on the mount are branching. And notice the flattening. They flatten as they attach. Not all do that, but this one certainly does. So yeah, it's got some nice attached roots and some new ones. I mean, there's a piece of bright green right at the base of that. Highly unlikely to be a spike that low. It's going to be another root, so that's good. Chances are some of the lower leaves may drop, and new leaves keep growing. So yeah, little mini mounted phal. And this one that's currently got a lovely spike on it. Well pleased with that. This is green apples. It has grown new leaves. Some of the older leaves at the back of the plant may go as the season progresses, especially that one that's facing backwards. That's just how it ended up when it went on the mount. And because it's not facing the light, it's probably not photosynthesizing properly either. But this is doing quite a bit of branching on the roots, and it's still going on. There are still branches appearing. So it's establishing a reasonable root system. Not many of them have actually attached, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's quite easy to hydrate, and hopefully the blooms are going to last a nice long time. Lovely colour. And you know, it's green apples. That it's nearer yellow than green, the palest of greens, but lovely little blooms. And because the spike came out naturally, they all face the same way. That's nice. Good job I didn't try and stake it. This Phalaenopsis is one of the few I've got that's actually got a proper name. Zenmin brontosaurus. And pretty little flowers and spikes that are capable of extending. It's currently got 2 spikes. Yeah, so we'll see what that looks like at the end of the year. This is effectively 2 plants. It's a main plant here, and then what was obviously a kiki, a side shoot, which has been allowed to grow on, and I may have to separate off. I'm just having a look. So the little side plant has got its own roots, so it should be capable of supporting itself, but it hasn't got a good root system, so it might actually pay to take it off, but I'll have a think about that. The 2 leaves here are going to drop soon. They'll come off the main plant. The other plant, the smaller one, looks like all of its leaves are probably going to stay. Or no, that's the main plant again. So the main plant's about to shed some leaves, but that's got a new leaf coming, so we'll see how that looks later. And this is one of the Nobile hybrids. This is a piece that basically came off of a much larger plant to just start a new plant. It was hanging out the side and it was in the way, so I cut it off and stuck it in a pot. It seems to be growing okay. I mean, I've just taken the blooms off. It did actually bloom, and it's got 2 new growths coming and some new root progress. It's got a good root system anyway, but there are some new ones as well. So we'll see how those 2 canes progress. There may be more canes, but I suspect that will just be the 2 for this season. We'll see how it gets on. And this is the larger Nobly hybrid that small piece came off of. Finished its initial spring flush or early spring flush. It still has a few more buds that it's going to push out, and at the moment we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and the start of another one. So 6 new canes showing at the moment to grow on, and once they've reached maturity, some of these older leafless canes that are never going to bloom again, you know, they've used up their nodes, they can come off and tidy the plant up a bit, but I always leave that exercise until the autumn when I'm confident that the new canes are full size and the plant is self-supporting without those older canes. So we'll see how that one progresses through the year. New canes are next year's blooms basically, but this one still has some places it hasn't. Oh, there's another couple of buds under there. This has some places where it hasn't bloomed, so even some of these existing canes that have bloomed will still produce some more blooms next year or later this year because they have some gaps that haven't been used yet. And it's only when they seem to have used all of their gaps that they become deciduous on this particular hybrid. And this is my largest and certainly most vigorous Nobly hybrid. It's a named hybrid, Prima Donna, and it pushes up new canes at a hell of a rate. So it's increasing its size every year because there's always more new canes than the old ones I take off. So it gradually gets larger and larger. But again, you know, some of the leaf canes have bloomed in many places. There's still room for a couple of buds lower down. That cane may be spent. We'll wait and see. But as far as new growths are concerned, that looks like it's going to grow a bud. That's got its terminal leaf, so that cane's not going to get any bigger. But coming down here, we've got 2 just starting there. And then we've got a new growth pushing on well there. A new growth really pushing on at a rate of knots there. There's another new one pushing up the middle there by the cane, and another extensive new growth here, and another one at the base here. So quite a few new canes to grow on this season, plus canes from last year that haven't bloomed yet. So these sorts of canes here, that'll be where next year's blooms come from. Plus, it'll probably bloom on some of the canes that are more mature now, but are this year's growths. Seems to bloom from everywhere, this one. And a few of these older leafless canes, again, can come off at the end of the season, replaced by more new canes than old ones I'll take off. I never take off more old canes than the new growths. I always balance it. Always slightly more new growths than the old ones that can be taken off. Tidies the plant, makes room for the new growths, and makes room for the blooms when they come out. So it is a tidying exercise, nothing more. This another one of the larger Noblys, is highly likely to be Spring Dreamer pollen, looking at the blooms, but it was given to me as a present with no tag. It's the least vigorous of my larger Noblys. I mean, it started to grow that cane late last year and continued growing it through the winter, and it hasn't reached its apex yet, so it's still going to carry on growing, so that's good. So that'll mature, well, mid-year probably. It's got another 2 growths just starting there and another one pushing on here. At the moment, those are the only signs of new growths I can see. So 2 new ones, one pushing on and one sort of halfway to maturity. Those are the new growths on it. It's got plenty of roots coming out, no problem there. It looks a tatty plant at the moment, and as a consequence, the chances are all 3 of these very large older canes will come off at the end of the season, just to tidy it up. If it's only going to grow canes this, oh, it's actually got some buds on it. If it's only going to grow canes this big, then obviously these were nursery grown canes, you know, larger and fuller. That's how they are. And if this is going to be its more compact size, then these just look silly, so they'll probably come off in the autumn. But again, it's dependent on how vigorous the new growths are, and is there enough strength in the canes that would be left minus those old ones, because you know, the older canes do support the plant. So you know, you've got to go careful how much you take off. But yeah, coming on. This is one of the larger Nobiles. This is Dendrobium Wedding Bells, and this is about to bloom. It's got a lot of spikes on it. So it's a late bloomer as far as Nobiles are concerned, but I think I got it out of season. You know, as the nurseries do, they sort of force them into bloom at all different times of the year, with their culture and their lighting and everything else that they can do and control, so that they've got plants in bloom throughout the year. But eventually, you know, their season comes back into the plant. Their genes actually put them right eventually. Most Nobiles are early spring, late winter, early spring bloomers. This was in bloom in the summer when I got it. Now it's in bloom, or will be, late spring, early summer. I suspect next year it will be even earlier, and that will be more its normal time. Got 3 new growths at the moment, and a nice new root system pushing out, relatively recently repotted, and as I said, it's going to bloom soon. This is a version of Encyclia called Digera. It's Siang Yu, came from Chantel. Currently on the repotting list, but not ready yet. I need to see some root growth before I'm prepared to take that out of its pot. But what we've got is a mass of older bulbs. They've all bloomed, and what we've got is a nice new growth coming out the middle of the plant. Another one here, that's 2. Another one round here, 3. Another one there, 4. So at least 4 new growths showing at the moment, and as I said, I'm watching for new roots to get that repotted. It's not going to bloom again until those new growths mature. How long that's going to take, I don't know. It's a relatively new plant, so we'll see how it progresses through the growing season after its repot and with its new growths. And this is my other Encyclia. This is Prismatocarpa, and this has recently been taken off a mount. Again, that last new growth got hit so bad by scale, and I'm hoping that's all the marks on the leaves are, because it got covered in scale, and because it was on a mount in a fair bit of moss, it wasn't on the daily watering routine, and they got the new growth before I got them. So I'm hoping that's all those marks are. I sacrificed the leafless back bulb when I took it off the mount to check, and it's okay on that front. And since it's gone in the pot, I can see right just below that new growth there are some new roots growing, and there is also another new growth the other side of that, which hopefully will push out from underneath. Yeah, I think it's going to do better in a pot. The roots on that mount, the new ones, were all aerial. They weren't hydrating well enough. So the plant was stalling, and I think now it's in a pot. It still gets plenty of air, it's a holy clay pot, but I think it's going to do better in that pot. If something doesn't work, change something. That's my attitude. So I've changed and put it in a pot, and hopefully the new roots it's now growing with the new growths will get a good hold in that pot. But yeah, marks on the leaves hopefully are nothing more than the scale damage when it was young. We shall find out as soon as it produces some new leaves. Now this Dendrobium cross is it's an incompatible cross, basically. The two don't go together. It was given a name Formidable, but it's basically Formosum crossed with Infundibulum, and those two have totally different culture requirements, so this plant is difficult to know how to look after. It's not looking that good, and it hasn't bloomed for a long time, so I'm getting a trifle worried. It does have a nice new cane starting, and some of the older roots are starting to push out little green tips. But if you look at that was one of the canes it grew not too long ago, and it failed. It blooms from the apex right in the top, so that is not capable of blooming. And the leaves don't look too good for one of the newer canes. This is also a new cane. You can tell the difference really, because they've still got their original black hair covering, even though it's very fine and difficult to see, but you can see the coloration there. That disappears after a while. Once they become deciduous canes, they just look like many other Dendrobium type of canes. But this was a beautiful cane when it grew. I was well pleased, and that still has its growing tip. That's the place where if a spike's going to come out, that's where it comes from. And whether that is capable of blooming, I don't know. Another new cane round here, or relatively new cane, with leaves failing already. So something about this plant, it's not happy. It wasn't repotted a huge amount of time ago, so I don't think there'll be a problem as such with the media breaking down or anything. So it's difficult to know what to do with this one, with its two parents being just that different basically. But yeah, I'm hoping, you know, it's got one new cane coming now and some signs of some new root growth. And all I can do is, I've tried moving it several times, doesn't seem to make much difference. I got a feeling this might have an inherent problem. So, you know, it can go into the treatment program, and then if that is the problem, hopefully it'll at least slow it down and give the new growth chance to come out clean. We shall see. This is Dendrobium harveyanum. This one blooms on and off for me throughout the year, quite honestly, and that's one of the best spikes it's ever had, with the sheer number of blooms, so I'm pleased with that. And yeah, I mean, this little splash of yellow with its little frills and everything is just a delight, especially as it keeps going. That's the blooming. The plant itself, I'm starting to get a little worried about. It hasn't pushed any new growths out for some time now, and although it keeps blooming, it will run out of places to bloom on its existing canes if it doesn't get some more canes in the not too distant future. So I may well have a gap in blooming on this while some new canes mature and get up to blooming size. But at the moment I don't see any new root growth, and I don't see any new actual growths on that plant. So I hope the plant itself is going to pick up. It doesn't look as though it's doing that well at the moment, but we'll see how it goes. This is Dendrobium no ID, and it's just, as you can see, coming to the end of its flush of blooms, which I was well pleased with, and it was unexpected. But there's a lot of these older canes have got to come off to tidy this plant up. It might even do better mounted. I'll have a think about it. It is a couple of pieces, I think it's 2, maybe 3 pieces in there, might even be more. Starting to push some new growths out from the base, so if I'm going to mount it, I need to do it relatively soon in the future, let it get settled on its mount. And quite honestly, if it was mounted, it would be pendulous in the main. You know, the new growths would arch over, and quite honestly, when it blooms, it would look a lot better like that than having to strap it upright. But a lot of the older canes need to come off to tidy the plant up. I'll make my mind up as I go along. It's not a now thing. I'll do it soon. Now, this strange thing here is Kiki's growing on well and growing more Kikis, and will probably be sold, but I'll film it anyway. It's an incompatible cross in my book. It's called Cassiope, and it's a cross between Dendrobium nobile, the species, and Dendrobium moniliforme. They're not compatible. Nobile, dry, cool, winter rest. Moniliforme does not like to get cold and is virtually a continuous grower. A little bit drier in the winter, but you know. So that, to me, that's just not a compatible cross. And it grows into a giant, an absolute giant, which I had. Beautiful blooms, don't last long, too much space for too little show. So I took some kikis off it. That's a plant to sell. I doubt if I'll be keeping that. It's growing well. It really is growing well. Good growth from the base, and this particular cane's got 3 kikis on. So as a plant to sell, it's looking pretty good, and I'll move that one on, I suspect. This is a weird dendrobium. I can't make head nor tail of this. It's lovely virgin, named variety Angel. The trouble is, I don't really know what category it comes into. Is it a nobly type? Is it not a nobly type? Should it rest? I don't know. But it will not grow normally. As you can see, the only growth on it are kikis. There's this one. Now, it did have 3. I broke 2 off, expecting them to root, and they never have. They're still sat there with no roots in a glass. They get some water now and again. And it currently has 2 nice strong kikis, no roots, and no new growths at the base, ever, since I've had it. It is a weird one. So it'll be interesting to see what the hell this does in its latest growing season. I suspect I will have 2 brand new giant kikis with no roots. The older one will probably become deciduous, and probably still no new growths from the base. This is a weird one. And this is Dendrobium Victoria Reginae, or AE, however you say it. Bought as kikis, so known kikis, so it's not a single plant in there. These are the old canes that I got it with. They've dropped their leaves. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 kikis. Since then it's grown this cane, this lovely strong one, and this one's coming on now, and there's another new one here that's recently started. It has got some active root growth, and lo and behold, this cane has actually got some buds. They could be kikis, but they look like buds to me. 2, maybe more. So hopefully I may get my first blooms on that later in the year. We'll see how it goes. If I do get blooms on that, I'm really looking forward to them. These 2 are Dendrobium moniliform, and it's a variegata version, which means it's got variegated leaves, that's all. It's basically the same plant. When I first got this, I bought it as a plant, as you do. And when I repotted it, turned out it was quite a few plants. Cheating. Nonetheless, it's okay. The one in the pot has a weak new growth there that grew in the winter. It's got another new growth coming on now, and the previous cane was this one, and that one actually has a bud near the top, so there'll be a bloom on that soon. I must remember to get a picture this time, because I forgot last time. The piece that I put on the mount, that seems to be doing quite well. There's some good root growth in that one and in this one, so they're both coming on well. This one has a new growth out to the back of the plant that's pushing on nicely, and another one near the right hand side of the plant. So this currently has 2 new growths, and there's another one just starting at the base. So 3 new canes to push on at the moment. That's recently been remounted because it was hanging off of its mount and not doing very well, and since it got tied on nice and tight and some new moss, it's now doing much better. So they're both the same plant effectively, bought together at the same time. So we'll see how those progress. Now this Dendrobium, as far as I know, is an unnamed primary hybrid. It's not that uncommon to find this hybrid because the 2 go reasonably well together. It's Farmeri crossed with Griffithianum, and it's about to bloom. The bloom spikes on this progress at a phenomenal rate from their start point to the point they open. Unfortunately they don't last long, but there's 2 bloom spikes now. There are others to come, so I should get a succession, although there will be gaps. There are no new growths showing on this at the moment, but from my records the new growths actually come later in the year. They're not spring new growths on this one for whatever reason. That just seems to be how it grows. Little bit of bug damage on some of the leaves when those were new growths. That shouldn't happen this year. Yeah, not a bad plant. Lovely blooms coming soon. thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you didn't, you know what to do. And if you want to see more videos like this and my other videos, including culture, care, repotting, mounting, and mainly orchid related topics, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That way you won't miss out on anything. And thanks for dropping by. See you next time.